Andrew Robertson reports.
As News Corporation goes into damage control in the wake of the London phone hacking scandal, its Australian newspapers division, News Limited, announced it would review any payments to third parties down under. But for the head of the Centre of Corporate Governance at Sydney's University of Technology, it's a meaningless gesture.
John Hartigan, the CEO of News Limited, has attempted to distance himself from News International and has insisted that none of the practices that we've seen in London are happening here in Australia. However, for the public to be assured that this is the case, we would need to have an independent external investigation of the journalistic practices.
Even the appointment of 2 retired judges to review the News Limited findings about itself have done nothing to alleviate Professor Clark's concerns.
In London, News International has been saying everything is fine for 10 years, when the most awful and tragic criminal activity was apparently rife on an industrial scale in the news of the world's activities.
Not surprisingly, News Limited has rejected Professor Clark's assertions.
The phone hacking scandal has been running for several years, so the attention on the news of the world has been going for some time, and I would make the point that people in Australia who want to make the connection or make a connection should start to point to the examples that they think show that we haven't operated in an ethical way, and it's interesting that they haven't.
However, Thomas Clark is not the only corporate governance professional with issues about the way News Limited is run. Sushila Perez da Costa says comments like this from Rupert Murdoch at this week's British parliamentary inquiry into the phone hacking scandal raised alarm bells for her.
I feel that people I trusted, I'm not saying who, I don't know what level, have let me down.
Mr Murdoch was saying effectively that he deputises many of these decisions. Who's in control at News Limited in Australia? If they're not reporting to the board in the kind of robust way that we would have expected for News International, then I'm not entirely clear about who's setting the culture.
We are very, very confident that this audit will find and establish that our operations are above board and are carried out to the standard that we expect.
As for parent company News Corporation,
it's really hard to know where to start with News Corp. Its corporate governance is almost non-existent.
Regnan advises big shareholders on the corporate governance of the companies they've invested in. Its issues with News Corporation include a board stacked with directors aligned to the Murdochs, a lack of media industry skills in those directors, and News Corp's dual share structure, which allows the Murdochs to control the company with just a 13% economic interest.
There really is no pretence that it's being run primarily for the interests of public shareholders. It's a family company, and it's remained a family company for many, many years.
A controversial example of News Corporation's attitude to corporate governance was highlighted 7 years ago when it moved its registered office from Australia to Delaware in the United States, a move which enraged institutional shareholders.
There is no automatic right to remove board members, for example, of a staggered board. There is the possibility that the board can put in place poison pills without shareholder consent in the US. So there's a whole range of ways in which management has stronger powers in the US, and I think the Delaware courts are fairly deferential to management.
As a number of News Corp institutional investors discovered when they challenged the company's poison pill, which is a way of fending off unwanted takeovers by issuing more shares to existing shareholders.
In that case, Chancellor Chandler described News Corp as being in a stew of its own making. And I can't help thinking at the moment with this current crisis, what everyone will be looking to see is News Corp in a stew of its own making again, and how will it get out of it this time?
The institutions, though, may yet have the last laugh thanks to the phone hacking scandal in Britain. An increasing number are now openly calling for Rupert and James Murdoch to go as the only way of fixing News Corporation's corporate governance challenges.
It's decision day on Greece, and no matter what